Great, thank you. This is a really nice stage. I feel like I should start doing stand-up. No, I'm kidding. Hi everyone, I'm Simon de Rouviere. I've been coding and writing about crypto for a few years, which includes writing tokenomics, NFTs, and I've been working in the creative industry. I used to do stuff in the music industry, and now I'm doing storytelling and NFTs. So I don't need this. Storytelling and NFTs, and I just want to give you some context which I believe that projects should focus on going into the future. And there's broadly, I would categorize most NFTs, especially when they focus on storytelling, into two broad categories. One is top-down, and the other one is bottom-up. Now, top-down is what I would say people are more familiar with generally, and even in traditional media, you know, the experience of like, you pay a ticket and someone tells you a story, right? You go and watch Star Wars in film or Dune, that experience, or you buy a book and the author tells you the story. Bottom up is more where fans and or readers or other storytellers participate to co-create the story. And it can be quite broad. It can be you know, official channels for fan fiction, or it can be just kids playing in the backyard after they've watched Star Wars. And so with NFTs, what it helps with, I feel, is that it can foster that bottom-up storytelling in new ways. So I'm going to give you some examples of projects that crosses the spectrum from more top-down direct storytelling to on the further end was more bottom-up. So first, to start with, the project on the left is Callan Iwamoto's Few Understand series, and there is direct exploration of just using text in NFTs as a medium for storytelling. And there it's just very direct, like here's a story being told, and it's not even like memorabilia or merchandise from this specific story. It's just here's the story, it uses the medium directly. And what's great about that one, for example, is that the text fits directly into the visual image. And there's actually quite a large group of people, I guess you could call them crypto poets, that uses this format for poetry, because poetry fits very well in that format. And as you now progress from this format, you start exploring where people use NFTs for acting as merchandise or memorabilia from stories. And that's a project that I'm working on with Untitled Frontier, where we want to lead with great science fiction stories, and then the NFTs are things from the story. So a good example in traditional media is you go watch Star Wars, you go buy the lightsaber afterwards, and you swing it around in your backyard, making whoosh noises. So in this case, it's memorabilia or things from the story that you would want to collect. And most people are familiar with that experience. But there's one thing I think that we've seen so far with that kind of format that shows where it can lead to with a more bottom-up kind of storytelling. And in projects like the Punks comic with Ripple used punks to tell additional stories, and also Jenkins the Valet from Bored Apes, where someone actually took an NFT without the permission or any kind of official channel and added new stories to the specific NFT itself. And there's also projects like Alethea, where you can even add AI or additional value to the story of the NFT. Now, why that's interesting is because someone that can get an NFT can decide to tell a story or add additional story or value to it more so and more easily than what you would see in traditional media. And I'll give you an example of what it would have looked like in traditional media. So imagine you go watch Star Wars, and afterwards you go buy the lightsaber. You have this plastic lightsaber now, and you decide, I want to write fan fiction. I want to invent a new story for this lightsaber, new characters, new force powers, what have you. You maybe modify it a little bit, and you write the best fan fiction that Star Wars has ever seen, and hopefully Disney doesn't sue you for doing that. And then you create the best story ever, and now, because so many fans now love the story that you created for this lightsaber you bought, you can then potentially go sell it afterwards on eBay. And so in that sense, you get a creative return, emotional investment return, and financial investment return from imbuing this NFT with additional character and stories. And so there's been a bunch of projects that have explored in this sort of middle ground, Stoner Cats, Glue Factory, Dead Fellas. There's a bunch of people that are exploring this intersection and even starting just doing things like Maybe we could even just give people the option or the ability to vote on new storylines, new characters. In some NFT projects, people actually take the NFTs and put them in the shows. Like your character is one of the NFTs in the show. So that is a very big middle ground currently where people are playing with it. And there's even questions like, what if you give the NFT holders access over a bit of a treasury? What will they do with it? Will they like write more stories or like throw parties, or who knows what will happen? Now, the final bit, and I think I was hoping to see it, and then finally it came around. The NFT on the right is from the Loot project, and I felt like that was a really good example where, by the NFT itself, the way it's approached, it lends itself towards that investment from other people versus other projects we've seen. So with Bored Apes or like Punks or any kind of other project where people have vested their own time into it, there was no like official invitation except that the IP was made permissive. Like you're allowed to do what you want with the IP. And that just giving people that access allows them to decide whether they want to spend their time to add more stories. But with Loot, what Loot did is that it did that too, but it created this, it went down the layer in terms of, how can I explain it? It went down the layer in terms of creating a new kind of primitive where it invites people to explore what that mixture of fantasy items could mean or could entail. And so a lot of people went and created new kinds of like additional visualizations, like characters, maps. There was like adventures and things like that where it just more explicitly invited people to participate. And so with this kind of intersection of storytelling, there are different ways in which you can approach how to tell stories with NFTs. And I think we're like at a very, very early stage where people are exploring it differently. And for that matter, it isn't necessarily always that straightforward, right? Because me standing up here is telling a story. And even like things like branding and marketing, that also tells different story. Everything is a story at the end of the day. And so with NFTs, which I think is a valuable addition or valuable thing, is asking oneself why people go buy merchandise in the first place, right? It's because they want to connect with that experience that they've had or want to have, but now they own that experience, right? There's additional connection just for themselves primarily. And so, yes, some people collect because they want to show it to other people, but there's still this fundamental feeling of like, I want to connect with other people. And so, as we've seen in the past in humanity's life, like, stories matter. We're here because we've all told stories about NFTs. We've all told stories about what the blockchain means. And that like history that we've created together is now sort of immutably there. And that history will always be there, right? So even a decade from now, whatever we did here today and whatever happened here this week, some of it has been recorded on chain and that won't disappear. But now that you also give people the opportunity to actually own the feeling as well, I think it's a very powerful primitive for storytelling. And so we'll hopefully see, I would at least hope to see like much more people become storytellers from just being the kind of person that adds more character to their profile picture NFT to actually authors exploring more broadly. And who knows, maybe one day we will see a Bored Ape film, you know, in cinema, or maybe Disney decides Dune needs more NFTs, you know? It's not Disney, sorry. Star Wars needs more NFTs. So I think that's the story I wanted to tell today. It's just to explore more intersection of storytelling and what could be possible into the future. There's a lot of projects doing really exciting things. I usually write about this stuff a lot, so you can also go find me on Twitter and go read some of the stuff I've read. It's usually more expansive, and it gives more details about the different kinds of projects. And yeah, that's my story, and so thank you very much, and let's see what stories we can tell. Thank you.